A virgin billionaire, single for 35 years, spends a night with an experienced nurse and blessed with twins. A heart-touching story. Hello, my beautiful family. Welcome. I can't tell you how deeply moved I was by your incredible response to the first part of Elliot and Clara's story. Your comments, your emotions, your connection to these characters, they've touched my heart in ways I never expected. So many of you shared how that single night during the storm resonated with you. That magical moment when walls came down and two souls connected beyond all expectations. The virgin billionaire and the compassionate nurse, brought together by circumstances, separated by the reality of their different worlds. Your messages asking, "What happens next?" have filled my inbox, and today I'm thrilled to continue this journey with you. When we left Elliot and Clara, they stood at that painful crossroads, their professional relationship ending, the memory of their connection still fresh, and that haunting question hanging between them. Is that what you want? Clara faced that impossible choice between returning to her familiar life or risking everything for a connection that defied explanation. Some of you predicted they'd never see each other again. Others believed their bond was too powerful to ignore. A few of you even sensed that something life-changing might already have happened during that stormy night, something that would bind their destinies forever, regardless of their choices. Today, we discover what happened after Clara walked away from Elliot's estate. Did she truly leave everything behind? Could the reclusive billionaire who opened his heart for the first time simply return to his solitary existence? And what unexpected revelation might force them to confront the true depth of what they've shared? This second chapter takes us deeper into their worlds, their struggles, and the impossible choices they face. It explores how sometimes life makes decisions for us, how incredible blessings can arise from our most vulnerable moments, and how true connection transforms us in ways we never imagined possible. I've poured my heart into continuing their story, weaving in themes of courage, vulnerability, responsibility, and the kind of love that transcends all boundaries. Each word carries my hope that their journey will inspire you to see the possibilities in your own unexpected connections. Before we begin, I'd love to hear, have you ever experienced a moment that divided your life into before and after? A connection or decision that completely changed your path? Share those precious experiences in the comments below. Our community grows stronger when we open our hearts to one another. If you're new to our family, please subscribe and join us on this beautiful journey of storytelling. Click that notification bell so you never miss a moment of these emotional tales that remind us of life's most profound lessons. And now, my beloved viewers, let's return to Elliot and Clara as they discover that sometimes, when we think a chapter has closed, life is really just beginning a whole new story.
For 3 days, Clara immersed herself in work, taking extra shifts at the hospital to keep her mind occupied. The emergency department's constant demands left little time for reflection, which suited her perfectly. When colleagues asked about her private nursing assignment, she offered minimal details, protective of the experience that had affected her so deeply. On the 4th day, she visited her mother at Golden Oaks Assisted Living. Marilyn Morgan sat in a sunlit corner of the community room, her once sharp mind now clouded by dementia. Some days were better than others. Today, thankfully, was a good one. "Clara, darling," her mother smiled in recognition. "You look different." "Something's changed." Clara settled beside her, surprised by the perceptiveness that occasionally broke through her mother's mental fog. "Do what?" Her mother patted her hand. "You have the same look I had when I met your father. Like you've discovered something precious and aren't quite sure if you can keep it." The observation hit uncomfortably close to home. Clara deflected, asking about her mother's weekly activities, but Marilyn wasn't easily distracted. "Who is he?" she asked directly. Clara hesitated, then surrendered to her mother's intuition. someone unexpected, someone complicated. The best ones always are, her mother replied with surprising clarity. Your father was the most complicated man I ever met. Also the most worthwhile. Clara remembered her parents' marriage, imperfect but grounded in genuine love and respect. Despite financial struggles and her father's battle with cancer, they had faced life as partners, drawing strength from each other. He's from a different world, Mom. Wealthy, powerful. I'm not sure we make sense together. Marilyn's eyes sharpened with momentary lucidity. Sense is overrated, Clara. In my experience, the heart recognizes its match regardless of circumstances. The question is whether you're brave enough to follow it. The conversation lingered in Clara's mind as she rode the subway home that evening. Her phone weighed heavy in her pocket, Elliot's number stored but unused. 5 days had passed since she'd left his estate. 5 days of questioning, rationalizing, remembering. In her apartment, Clara kicked off her shoes and collapsed on the sofa, physically and emotionally exhausted. Her gaze fell on her bedside drawer, where Elliot's note lay hidden. With sudden determination, she retrieved it, reading again the words that had haunted her all week. Some people spend lifetimes searching for connections that form in an instant. Before she could second-guess herself, Clara pulled out her phone and typed a message, Saturday, 7 p.m. I'll meet you. She hesitated only briefly before pressing send, then watched in a mixture of panic and anticipation as 3 dots appeared almost immediately, indicating his response. I'll send a car. Thank you, Clara. Simple words that conveyed volumes. Clara set down her phone, heart racing. She had just taken a step into unknown territory, toward a man who represented everything outside her normal experience. Saturday arrived with alarming speed. Clara stood before her closet, surveying her limited options with growing dismay. Nothing seemed appropriate for dinner with a billionaire. Finally, she settled on a simple emerald dress she'd worn to a colleague's wedding, modest yet flattering, the color bringing out the green in her eyes. At precisely 6:30 p.m., her phone buzzed with a text. The car is waiting downstairs. The same sleek vehicle that had taken her home from Elliot's estate now waited to return her there. As they drove through Manhattan toward Long Island, Clara's nervousness intensified. What was she doing? Was this elaborate fantasy doomed to shatter against the rocks of reality? To her surprise, the car bypassed the route to Elliot's estate, instead pulling up before an unassuming brownstone in a quiet Brooklyn neighborhood. The driver escorted her to the door, which opened before they reached it. Elliot stood in the doorway, dressed in simple dark slacks and a blue button-down shirt that matched his eyes. Without his usual business attire, he looked younger, more approachable, and impossibly handsome. Not what you expected, he asked, noting her surprise. I thought we'd be going to your estate, Clara admitted. I wanted neutral territory, he explained, stepping aside to welcome her in. This was my first home in New York before Kane Technologies took off. I keep it as a retreat when the mansion feels too empty. The interior was warm and inviting. Hardwood floors, comfortable furniture, walls lined with books. No high-tech displays or priceless art, just a space that felt genuinely lived in. I thought we'd eat in, if that's all right, Elliot said, leading her to a dining area where the table was already set. I'm not much of a cook, but I can manage pasta. Clara smiled, touched by his effort to create an intimate setting far removed from his billionaire persona. It's perfect. Over a simple meal of pasta with garlic bread, they talked, really talked, without the constraints of their previous roles. Elliot spoke of his company's early days, the failures that preceded success, his vision for technology that served humanity. Clara shared stories of her nursing career, her brother's recovery from leukemia, her father's influence on her life. As the evening progressed, the initial awkwardness melted away. They moved to a comfortable sofa, glasses of wine in hand, the space between them gradually diminishing until Clara found herself nestled against Elliot's side, his arm draped comfortably around her shoulders. I've thought about you every minute since you left, he confessed quietly. Clara looked up at him, honesty compelling her response. I try not to think about you. I failed miserably. His smile was tender as he traced the curve of her cheek. So where does that leave us? I don't know, she admitted. This still feels impossible. Why? Because I have money and you don't. Because we come from different backgrounds. Partly. And partly because relationships that begin with such intensity rarely last. They burn bright and fade quickly. Elliot considered her words. What if we slowed down? Got to know each other properly? The suggestion surprised her. You'd be willing to do that? Clara, I've spent 35 years keeping people at a distance. Now I've found someone I want to let in. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make that work, including taking things slowly. His sincerity moved her deeply. This wasn't the approach of a billionaire accustomed to instant gratification, but of a man genuinely interested in building something meaningful. I like that, she said softly. And so began their careful courtship. Over the following weeks, they constructed a relationship one step at a time. Elliot joined Clara for simple dinners at her Queens apartment. She accompanied him to a technology conference where his latest medical innovation was unveiled. They spent a Sunday afternoon helping her mother plant flowers in the assisted living facilities garden, Elliot displaying unexpected patience with Marilyn's repetitive questions. 2 months into their relationship, Clara introduced Elliot to her colleagues during a hospital fundraiser. When Dr. Patel whispered, "Is that Elliot Kane with you?" Clara simply nodded and said, "He's my date." The normalcy of the statement belied its significance. They were building a bridge between their worlds, finding common ground despite their differences. 3 months in, Clara spent her first weekend at Elliot's estate, no longer as his nurse but as his partner. The mansion felt different now, warmer, less like a showcase and more like a potential home. In Elliot's private quarters, they rediscovered the passion of their first night together, but now enhanced by genuine emotional intimacy. As summer faded into autumn, Clara noticed subtle changes in her body, fatigue that persisted despite adequate rest, a strange aversion to her morning coffee, unusual tenderness. Initially, she attributed these symptoms to her demanding schedule and the emotional upheaval of her new relationship. But one morning in late October, as she prepared for her shift, undeniable nausea overtook her. Sitting on the bathroom floor of her apartment, Clara faced a possibility she hadn't considered. That afternoon, she purchased a pregnancy test on her lunch break. In the hospital's staff bathroom, she followed the instructions with shaking hands, then waited the prescribed 3 minutes, her mind racing with calculations. When the double pink lines appeared in the test window, Clara stared in disbelief. Despite her medical training, despite her careful approach to life, she had not anticipated this outcome from that single night before they'd established their relationship. A second test yielded the same result. Clara completed her shift in a daze, her mind struggling to process the implications. That evening, she called her OB/GYN and scheduled an urgent appointment for the following morning. The ultrasound technician's voice seemed to come from far away as she moved the wand across Clara's abdomen. "Congratulations, Ms. Morgan. You're approximately 12 weeks pregnant." Clara nodded numbly. 12 weeks matched perfectly with that night at Elliot's estate during the storm. "And it looks like." The technician moved the wand slightly, studying the screen with professional concentration. "Yes, I'm seeing 2 distinct heartbeats. You're having twins." The word echoed in Clara's mind. Twins. 2 lives growing inside her, created from a connection so powerful it had altered her existence in ways she was only beginning to comprehend. She left the medical office in a state of shocked wonder, her hand resting protectively over her still flat abdomen. Elliot Kane, the virgin billionaire who had remained single for 35 years, had not only opened his heart to love but had created new life in the process, twice over. Now she faced the daunting task of telling him he was going to be a father. For 3 days, Clara carried her secret like a fragile treasure, uncertain and afraid. She faced countless medical emergencies with calm professionalism, but this personal revelation left her paralyzed with indecision. How would Elliot respond? Would he see this unexpected development as a blessing or a complication? They had plans to meet at his Brooklyn brownstone that Friday evening. Clara arrived early, rehearsing various approaches in her mind, each sounding inadequate for the magnitude of her news. Elliot greeted her with a warm embrace and a lingering kiss. "You look beautiful," he said, studying her face. "But something's troubling you." His perceptiveness still surprised her. "Can we talk before dinner?" Concern flickered across his features as he led her to the living room. They sat together on the sofa, Clara's hands clasped tightly in her lap. "What's wrong?" Elliot asked, his voice gentle. Clara took a deep breath. "Do you remember our first night together?" During the storm, a smile touched his lips. "I'm unlikely to forget it. Something happened that night." She met his eyes directly. Something unexpected. Elliot waited, his expression open but puzzled. "I'm pregnant, Elliot." The words hung in the air between them. "With twins." For a moment, he simply stared at her, his brilliant mind clearly struggling to process her statement. Then, astonishingly, tears welled in his eyes. Elliot Kane, the composed CEO who never revealed emotion in public, was openly crying. "Twins," he whispered, his voice unsteady. Clara nodded, unable to read his reaction. "I just found out yesterday. I'm 12 weeks along." Elliot reached for her hand, holding it between both of his. "Are you certain?" "Yes. I had an ultrasound." 2 heartbeats. His gaze dropped to her abdomen, still flat beneath her blouse. 2 lives. Our children. The wonder in his voice eased Clara's anxiety slightly. "This isn't what either of us planned." "I know it's overwhelming." "Yes," he interrupted, his eyes meeting hers again. "It is overwhelming. But Clara," he paused, searching for words. "I never expected to be a father. I never thought I was capable of the kind of connection that creates a family. Then you came into my life and showed me otherwise." Hope bloomed in Clara's chest. "You're not upset?" "Upset?" Elliot shook his head in amazement. "I'm terrified. I'm exhilarated. I'm honored that you would bring my children into the world." His sincere response unleashed emotions Clara had been suppressing since the doctor's office. Tears spilled down her cheeks as Elliot gathered her into his arms. "We'll figure this out together," he promised, his lips against her hair. "Whatever you need, whatever our children need, I'm here." They talked for hours, dinner forgotten. Elliot asked countless questions about the pregnancy, her health, the development of the twins. His analytical mind approached impending fatherhood as he did everything, with thoroughness and intense focus. "Will you continue working at the hospital?" he asked. "The long hours, the physical demands, is it safe?" "For now, yes," Clara assured him. "Many nurses work well into their pregnancies. I'll modify my duties as needed." Elliot nodded, clearly making mental notes. "And your apartment? It's not really suitable for 3 additional people." Clara hadn't considered the practical implications yet. "I hadn't thought that far ahead. We need to discuss living arrangements," Elliot said carefully. "I don't want to pressure you, but I want to be present for every moment of this journey. I want to be there when they kick for the first time, when they're born, when they take their first steps." The image of Elliot as an involved, devoted father touched Clara deeply. "What are you suggesting?" He took her hands, his expression serious. "Move in with me. Not necessarily right away, but before the babies arrive. We can use the Brooklyn house if the estate feels too isolated." Clara hesitated. Despite their deepening relationship, this represented a monumental step. "Elliot, we've only been together a few months. Living together is a huge commitment, even without children involved." "I know," he acknowledged, "but these circumstances are unique. I want to build a life with you, Clara, a real life, not just weekend visits and dinners." The twins have simply accelerated a future I already wanted. His words warmed her heart, yet practical concerns remained. "What about my mother?" "I need to stay close to her care facility. We'll find solutions," Elliot promised. My resources are at your disposal. We could move her to a facility nearer to us or arrange for private care. Clara saw the determination in his eyes, the same focus that had built his technological empire, now directed toward creating their family. It was both overwhelming and reassuring. I need time to process all this, she said finally. Can we take things one step at a time? Elliot nodded, visibly reining in his natural tendency to plan and control. Of course. But know that I'm all in, Clara. You and our children are my priority now. That night, as they lay together in Elliot's bed, his hand rested protectively over her stomach. Clara watched him, still marveling at how this solitary man had transformed so completely in just a few months. What are you thinking? She asked softly. Elliot's expression was contemplative. I'm thinking about my parents. How distant they were. How they prioritized status and achievement over emotional connection. I'm thinking about how not to repeat their mistakes. Clara covered his hand with hers. The fact that you're considering this already makes you different from them. I never had models for loving parenthood, he admitted. I don't know how to be a father. And I don't know how to be a mother to twins, Clara replied. We'll learn together. Over the following weeks, they established a new rhythm to their relationship. Elliot restructured his work schedule to attend Clara's prenatal appointments. He read every book on pregnancy and parenting he could find, approaching fatherhood with the same dedication he brought to his business innovations. For her part, Clara began the emotional process of reimagining her life. She had always been fiercely independent, defining herself through her work and her ability to care for others. Now she was learning to accept support, to share responsibility, to envision a future intertwined with Elliot's. At 16 weeks, they watched in awe as the ultrasound technician confirmed they were expecting a boy and a girl. Elliot gripped Clara's hand tightly as the grainy images of their children appeared on the screen, their tiny hearts beating strongly. They're perfect, he whispered, voice thick with emotion. Later that day, Elliot took Clara to the estate's east wing, which had been closed off during her previous visit. He opened the double doors to reveal a spacious suite of rooms flooded with natural light. I thought this could be the nursery, he said tentatively. There's room for 2 cribs, a sitting area for nighttime feedings, and the adjoining room could be a playroom as they grow. Clara walked through the space, touched by his thoughtfulness. You've been planning this. I wanted you to see that there's room for our family here. If you decide this is where you want to be. Clara turned to face him, suddenly certain. Ask me again. Elliot looked confused. Ask you what? Ask me to move in with you. Understanding dawned in his eyes. Elliot crossed the room and took her hands in his. Clara Morgan, will you and our children make a home with me? Yes, she said simply. This feels right. Elliot's face lit with joy as he gathered her in his arms, mindful of her slightly rounded belly. When? After the hospital fundraiser next month. That gives me time to sublet my apartment and make arrangements for my mother. As summer turned to autumn, Clara gradually transferred her life to Elliot's estate. Her modest possessions looked strange amidst the mansion's grandeur, but Elliot insisted they incorporate her furniture and personal items, wanting her to feel truly at home. By October, Clara's pregnancy was obvious, her slender frame now sporting a distinct bump that housed their growing twins. Though they'd agreed to keep their news private, speculation had begun among Clara's colleagues and Elliot's business associates. People are talking, Clara mentioned one evening as they sat on the terrace watching the sunset. The hospital rumor mill is working overtime. Elliot took her hand, his expression thoughtful. Let them talk. All that matters is what we're building together. As Clara looked out over the manicured grounds toward the ocean beyond, she reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought her to this moment. 1 year ago, she could never have imagined sharing her life with Elliot Kane, much less carrying his children. Yet here they were, the experienced nurse and the virgin billionaire, creating a family neither had expected but both now treasured beyond measure. The annual Manhattan Memorial Hospital fundraiser transformed the Metropolitan Museum of Art into a glittering showcase of wealth and philanthropy. Clara stood before the mirror in their bedroom, smoothing the fabric of her midnight blue maternity gown over her 20-week baby bump. "Are you sure about this?" she asked, meeting Elliot's eyes in the reflection. "Once we appear together publicly, there's no going back." Elliot, handsome in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, stepped behind her and placed his hands gently on her shoulders. "I've never been more certain of anything," he said. "Are you having doubts?" "Not about us," Clara clarified. "But your world is intimidating. These people have known you for years as the untouchable Elliot Kane. How will they react to me? To this?" She gestured to her rounded abdomen. "With envy," Elliot replied simply, "because I found what most of them are still searching for." His unwavering confidence steadied her nerves. "All right, then. Let's make our debut." Their arrival at the museum caused exactly the stir Clara had anticipated. Conversations halted mid-sentence as Elliot Kane, notoriously private, perpetually single, entered with a visibly pregnant woman on his arm. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wind through tall grass. Clara lifted her chin, drawing on the same strength that carried her through chaotic emergency room shifts. Elliot's hand rested protectively at the small of her back as they moved through the crowd. Dr. Maxwell was the first to approach, genuine pleasure lighting his face. "My two favorite patients. Though I see you've graduated from cardiac monitoring to family planning." He winked at Clara. "I'm delighted for you both." His warm welcome broke the ice. Clara's hospital colleagues gathered around, offering congratulations. Dr. Patel raised his champagne flute in a toast to Clara and Elliot, proving that the best medical outcomes sometimes happen outside the hospital. Laughter eased the tension, though Clara noticed several society women watching from a distance, their expressions calculating. Elliot steered her toward the center of the room where the hospital board members waited. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced without preamble, "I'd like to introduce Clara Morgan, not only an exceptional cardiac nurse, but the woman who has transformed my life and is carrying our children, twins, due in spring." The directness of his announcement left no room for gossip or speculation. Clara squeezed his hand in gratitude as applause broke out around them. The hospital's chief of surgery approached, champagne in hand. "Kane, you never do anything halfway, do you? First revolutionizing our diagnostic systems, now twins on the first try." Clara blushed deeply, but Elliot merely smiled. "Clara has taught me the value of efficiency." The evening progressed more smoothly than Clara had dared hope. Elliot remained attentive at her side, clearly proud to introduce her to his business associates and acquaintances. For her part, Clara was surprised to discover she enjoyed these interactions. Once people moved past their initial shock, many seemed genuinely interested in her work and her perspective on healthcare. The real test came when an elegant older woman approached, her shrewd eyes assessing Clara from head to toe. "So you're the woman who has accomplished what Manhattan's most determined socialites could not." "Diane," Elliot greeted her coolly. "May I introduce Clara Morgan?" "Clara, this is Diane Foster, an old friend of my mother's." The woman extended her hand, her diamond bracelet catching the light. "Charmed, I'm sure." "I must say, Elliot, you surprised us all. Your mother would have been interested to meet the mother of her grandchildren." The pointed reference to Elliot's deceased mother hung uncomfortably in the air. Clara felt him tense beside her. "My mother valued intelligence and capability above all else," Elliot replied evenly. She would have recognized both in Clara. Diane's smile remained fixed. "Indeed. Well, I look forward to seeing how you adapt to fatherhood, Elliot. Children have a way of dismantling even the most controlled existence." After she glided away, Clara turned to Elliot. "I think I just met the final boss of Manhattan society." His laugh dispelled the tension. "You handled her beautifully. Diane expects people to be intimidated by her." "I faced down drunk patients in the ER threatening me with 4 poles," Clara replied dryly. "Society matrons don't scare me." By the evening's end, they had weathered the public revelation of their relationship with remarkable success. In the car heading home, Clara kicked off her uncomfortable shoes with a sigh of relief. That wasn't so terrible, she admitted. Elliot smiled, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him at a public event. Having you there made it bearable. Usually, I count the minutes until I can leave these functions. That's because you're always alone, Clara observed. Everything's more manageable when shared. He took her hand, raising it to his lips. A lesson I'm still learning. The following weeks brought new challenges as they adjusted to living together while preparing for the twins' arrival. Elliot's tendency toward perfectionism manifested in excessive research and planning. He interviewed 12 pediatricians before selecting one, ordered every baby safety device on the market, and hired a team of designers to create the ideal nursery environment. Elliot, Clara said one evening, finding him surrounded by books on child development. Babies don't need all this. They need love, food, and clean diapers. Everything else is extra. He looked up, anxiety evident in his expression. I don't want to make mistakes, Clara. My parents made so many. Understanding dawned. Elliot's perfectionism wasn't about control. It was about fear. Clara sat beside him, taking his hand. You're not your parents. And making mistakes is part of parenthood. How can you be so calm about this? He asked. I'm not calm inside, she admitted. I'm terrified too. But I've spent my career handling emergencies one step at a time. That's all parenting is, responding to each moment as it comes. Her practical approach gradually influenced Elliot. He scaled back his excessive preparations, focusing instead on spending time with Clara as her pregnancy progressed. They established evening walks along the beach, Elliot's hand always protectively entwined with hers as they discussed names for the twins and shared hopes for their future. In December, as Clara entered her third trimester, complications arose. At a routine checkup, her blood pressure registered dangerously high. Preeclampsia, her doctor explained gravely. It's more common with multiple pregnancies. You'll need to start bed rest immediately. The diagnosis hit Clara hard. As someone accustomed to caring for others, being confined to bed felt like a punishment. Worse, she worried constantly about the twins, whose safety now depended on her ability to stay calm and inactive. Elliot rose to the challenge magnificently. He rearranged his entire schedule, conducting business from home so he could remain near Clara. He hired a private nurse to monitor her condition during the day, but insisted on handling evening care himself. You don't have to do everything personally, Clara protested one night as he brought her dinner on a tray, complete with a small vase holding a single rose. I want to, he said simply. You've spent your life caring for others. Let me care for you now. His dedication moved her deeply. Each evening, Elliot would sit beside her, reading aloud to the twins or playing classical music near her belly. When Clara grew frustrated with confinement, he listened patiently to her complaints without trying to fix everything, a significant evolution for a man accustomed to solving problems. On Christmas Eve, as snow fell softly outside their window, Elliot surprised Clara with a special delivery. Who's visiting at this hour? She asked, hearing voices downstairs. Elliot smiled mysteriously. You'll see. Moments later, the bedroom door opened to reveal Clara's mother, accompanied by a private nurse. Marilyn Morgan's face lit up at the sight of her daughter. Look at you, she exclaimed, her dementia momentarily clearing as it sometimes did with emotional triggers. My baby having babies. Clara's eyes filled with tears as her mother carefully embraced her. Mom, how did you? Elliot arranged everything, Marilyn explained, settling beside Clara on the bed. He's bringing me for Christmas. Isn't that wonderful? Clara looked at Elliot, who stood watching from the doorway, his expression tender. In that moment, she loved him with an intensity that took her breath away. Later, after her mother had been settled in a specially prepared guest suite, Clara reached for Elliot's hand. Thank you, she whispered. That was the perfect gift. He sat beside her, his hand gently caressing her rounded belly. I was thinking about family traditions. I didn't have many growing up, but I want our children to have different experiences. Holiday gatherings, grandparents, warmth. "You're already a wonderful father," Clara told him, placing her hand over his. As if in agreement, one of the twins kicked vigorously against their joined hands. Elliot's eyes widened in wonder. "They're getting stronger and more impatient," Clara laughed. "They take after their father." As the new year dawned, bringing them closer to the twins' arrival, Clara reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this point. From their first meeting as nurse and patient to their current life as expectant parents, they had crossed boundaries of class, experience, and expectation. The reclusive billionaire and the practical nurse had created something neither could have imagined, not just children, but a family bound by genuine love and respect. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Clara knew they would face them together, stronger for having found each other. February brought relentless snowstorms that blanketed the Kane estate in pristine white. Clara, now 34 weeks pregnant, watched the swirling flakes from her bedroom window, one hand resting on her enormously swollen abdomen where the twins shifted restlessly. "They're active today," she told Elliot, who entered carrying a cup of her favorite herbal tea. "The doctor said that's a good sign," he replied, setting the tea on the bedside table and joining her at the window. "How are you feeling?" "Heavy, uncomfortable, impatient." Clara smiled ruefully, but also grateful. "My blood pressure has been stable for 2 weeks now." Elliot's arms encircled her from behind, his hands cradling her belly protectively. "You've been incredible through all of this." Clara leaned back against him, drawing strength from his presence. After weeks of strict bed rest, her doctor had finally allowed limited movement around the house. Even these small freedoms felt precious after such confinement. "I've been thinking about names," she said. "For the boy, what do you think of James?" "After my father." Elliot nodded against her hair. "James Kane. It's strong, timeless. I like it. And for our daughter." Clara hesitated. "I was wondering about Elizabeth." "After your mother." The suggestion clearly surprised him. "You want that, even though you never met her." "She gave me you," Clara said simply. "And from what you've told me, despite her emotional distance, she was brilliant and determined, qualities I'd be proud for our daughter to have." Emotion flickered across Elliot's face. "James and Elizabeth Kane," he tested the names aloud. "Perfect." That night, Clara woke suddenly, instinctively knowing something had changed. A sharp pain tightened across her abdomen, followed by a warm rush of fluid soaking the sheets. "Elliot," she gasped, shaking his shoulder. "Wake up. My water broke." He was instantly alert, years of crisis management and business serving him well now. "I'll call Dr. Winters. The hospital bag is packed. Reynolds has the car ready." Another contraction gripped Clara, stronger than the first. "They're coming fast," she warned. Within minutes, Elliot had alerted the doctor, helped Clara into dry clothes, and guided her carefully down the stairs. Reynolds waited with the car, engine running, despite the pre-dawn darkness and steadily falling snow. "The roads are treacherous, sir," he warned as Elliot helped Clara into the back seat. "The plows haven't been through yet. Drive carefully but quickly," Elliot instructed, his calm voice belying the concern in his eyes as he settled beside Clara. The journey to Manhattan Memorial Hospital normally took 40 minutes. That morning, with snow reducing visibility to mere feet and ice making the roads treacherous, each mile felt like 10. Clara's contractions intensified, coming faster than expected for a first pregnancy. "Something's wrong," she whispered between pain breaths. "It's too fast." Elliot gripped her hand, his expression betraying rare fear. "We're almost there. Hold on, Clara." When they finally reached the hospital, Dr. Winters was waiting with a team of nurses. One glance at Clara, and the obstetrician's professional concern was evident. "Get her to labor and delivery immediately," she ordered. Her blood pressure's sky high. Everything accelerated into a blur of activity. Clara was whisked into an examination room, Elliot following close behind. Monitors were attached, vitals checked, medications administered. "Severe preeclampsia," Dr. Winters explained grimly. We need to deliver these babies now. Clara's at risk for seizures or stroke. Elliot's face paled. Will she be all right? We're taking her for an emergency C-section, the doctor replied, already signaling for the operating room to prepare. Mr. Kane, you'll need to change into scrubs if you want to be present. Clara gripped Elliot's hand. Don't leave me, she pleaded, the professional nurse now replaced by a frightened first-time mother. Never, he promised fiercely. The operating room was blindingly bright after the dimness of early morning. Clara lay on the table, a surgical drape separating her from the view of her abdomen. Elliot sat by her head, still holding her hand as the anesthesiologist administered the spinal block. Talk to me, Clara whispered, anxiety threading through her voice. Distract me. Elliot leaned close, his lips near her ear. Remember our first night together? The storm that changed everything. Clara nodded, grateful for the memory of something beautiful amidst her fear. I knew then, he continued. I knew you were different, that what was happening between us was extraordinary. I never believed in life-changing moments until I met you. Clara's eyes filled with tears. I love you, Elliot. I love you too, he replied, the words coming easily now though they had been so difficult at first. And I'm about to love 2 more people because of you. The surgery proceeded with efficient speed. Clara felt pressure and movement, but no pain as Dr. Winters worked. Then suddenly, a cry pierced the clinical atmosphere, tiny but fierce, announcing a new presence in the world. Your son, Dr. Winters announced, lifting a red-faced, squirming infant above the drape. Tears streamed down Elliot's face as he caught his first glimpse of James. He's perfect, he whispered. Minutes later, a second cry joined the first as Elizabeth emerged, slightly smaller than her brother but equally determined to make her presence known. Twins delivered successfully, the doctor confirmed. They'll need some time in the NICU since they're early, but their initial APGAR scores are good. Relief washed over Elliot, but it was short-lived. Suddenly, monitors began blaring alarming tones. Clara's blood pressure was plummeting, her face growing alarmingly pale. She's hemorrhaging, a nurse called urgently. BP dropping to 80/40ths. Clara, Elliot's voice broke as he gripped her hand tighter. Stay with me. Her eyes fluttered. The babies. They're beautiful, he assured her. Now fight, Clara. Our family needs you. Dr. Winters worked with controlled urgency, her hands moving swiftly as she sought the source of bleeding. Get 2 units of blood ready, she ordered. And prepare for a possible hysterectomy if we can't control this. Time seemed to slow, each second stretching endlessly as Elliot watched Clara's life hanging in precarious balance. The man who had controlled every aspect of his existence for 35 years now faced his complete powerlessness in the face of medical emergency. Please, he whispered, not sure if he was addressing the medical team, Clara, or some higher power he'd never acknowledged before. Please. After what felt like hours but was probably minutes, Dr. Winters straightened. Bleeding's under control. We found the tear and repaired it. Vitals are stabilizing. Elliot released a shuddering breath, his shoulders sagging with relief. She'll need extensive monitoring and recovery time, the doctor cautioned. But I believe she'll be all right. While Clara was transferred to recovery, Elliot was escorted to the NICU to see his children. Wearing a yellow paper gown over his scrubs, he approached their incubators with a mixture of awe and terror. James and Elizabeth lay in separate enclosures, tiny bodies connected to monitors and oxygen support. Despite their premature arrival at 34 weeks, both babies showed remarkable strength. James with his father's dark hair, Elizabeth with what promised to be her mother's auburn locks. You can touch them, the gentle-voiced nurse encouraged. Just through these openings here. With trembling fingers, Elliot reached out to his son, then his daughter. Their skin felt impossibly soft, delicate beyond anything he'd ever encountered. When Elizabeth's miniature hand reflexively gripped his finger, emotion overwhelmed him. Hello, he whispered. I'm your father. The weight of that statement, its responsibility, Its privilege settled over him like a mantle. This brilliant man who had revolutionized technology, who had built financial empires and transformed industries, now faced his greatest challenge and his greatest joy. For the next 3 days, Elliot existed in a constant circuit between Clara's recovery room and the NICU. He slept in short bursts in an uncomfortable chair, refusing to leave the hospital despite Reynolds bringing fresh clothes and his executive team demanding decisions on pressing business matters. "They can wait," he told his CFO flatly. "My family can't." On the fourth day, Clara was strong enough to be wheeled to the NICU. The reunion between mother and babies reduced the hardened NICU nurses to tears. Though still connected to IVs and monitors herself, Clara reached out to touch her children with wonder. "They're so beautiful," she whispered, looking up at Elliot with joy despite her exhaustion. "Thank you for taking care of them when I couldn't." "You gave them life," he replied simply. "I just kept watch." By the end of the week, Clara's condition had improved enough for her to be discharged, though the twins would remain in the NICU for several more weeks. The journey home to the estate was subdued, both parents leaving pieces of their hearts behind in those hospital incubators. Elliot had transformed the bedroom suite into a recovery sanctuary, with medical equipment disguised among beautiful furnishings. A private nurse was engaged to assist with Clara's recovery, allowing Elliot to divide his time between caring for her and visiting the twins. "This isn't how I imagined our first weeks as parents," Clara admitted one evening as Elliot helped her into a comfortable position among the pillows. "No," he agreed, sitting beside her. "But they're getting stronger every day." "And so are you." Clara studied his face, noting the new lines of worry and the shadows beneath his eyes from sleepless nights. Yet there was something else there too, a depth and openness that hadn't existed before. "You've changed," she observed softly. Elliot smiled, taking her hand. "For the better, I hope." "Definitely for the better." Clara squeezed his fingers. "The solitary billionaire has become a family man." "The most rewarding transformation of my life," he replied, and the truth of it shone in his eyes. March brought the first hints of spring to Long Island, tender buds on the trees, crocuses pushing through melting snow, and renewed hope to the Kane household. After 3 weeks in the NICU, James and Elizabeth had grown stronger, their tiny bodies finally capable of maintaining temperature and feeding regularly without medical assistance. "They're ready to come home," Dr. Winters announced during their morning visit to the hospital. Clara, now recovered enough to move without pain, gasped with delight. "Today?" The doctor nodded, smiling at the new parents' excitement. "Everything's in order." Their final tests came back excellent. "They've reached the weight threshold we wanted." Elliot's usually composed demeanor dissolved into pure joy. He embraced Clara, then shook the doctor's hand with uncharacteristic enthusiasm. "What do we need to do?" The next hours passed in a whirlwind of preparation. While Clara received final instructions from the NICU nurses on home care, Elliot made phone calls ensuring everything at the estate was ready. Reynolds was dispatched to purchase 2 additional car seats, as Elliot suddenly worried their previous selections might not be secure enough. By afternoon, the discharge paperwork was complete. Clara sat in a wheelchair, hospital policy despite her recovered strength, cradling Elizabeth while Elliot held James. As they emerged from the hospital's main entrance into the mild spring air, both babies blinked at their first glimpse of natural light. "Welcome to the world, little ones," Clara murmured, adjusting Elizabeth's pink cap. "It's a beautiful place, and you're going to love it." The drive home was marked by a nervous silence, both parents watching the twins with vigilant eyes, still hardly believing they were finally bringing their children home. At the estate, Reynolds had coordinated a small welcome. The staff lined up respectfully, the house brightened with fresh flowers, and a hand-painted banner reading, "Welcome home, James and Elizabeth," hung in the entrance hall. "This is your home," Elliot told the twins as they crossed the threshold, his voice catching with emotion. "You are loved here." The first night established a pattern that would dominate the coming weeks. A beautiful chaos of feedings, diaper changes, soothing cries, and stolen moments of rest. Despite having a night nurse available, Elliot insisted on sharing every aspect of the twins' care. Clara woke from a brief nap to find him in the nursery rocking chair, a baby nestled in each arm, speaking to them softly about quantum physics and artificial intelligence. "They're 3 weeks old, Elliot," she said with an affectionate smile. "Maybe start with simpler concepts." He looked up, not embarrassed in the slightest. "They're Canes. Might as well begin their education early." Clara settled on the ottoman beside him, watching this man who had once isolated himself from all emotional connection, now completely devoted to two tiny beings who couldn't even focus their eyes properly yet. "You're a natural father," she observed. Elliot shook his head. "Not natural. I'm learning every moment. Making mistakes. Trying again. That's exactly what makes you natural at this," Clara explained. "Parenthood isn't about perfection. It's about showing up, adapting, and loving through all the messiness." Over the following months, the estate that had once been a showcase of sterile perfection transformed into a true home. Baby equipment occupied the living areas, family photos replaced abstract art, and the sound of lullabies drifted through rooms that had known only silence before. Elliot adapted his work schedule dramatically, conducting most business from his home office and refusing international travel that would separate him from his family. When necessary obligations took him to Manhattan, he returned each evening, often rushing through the door eager to hear about the twins' latest developments. Clara watched his transformation with love and admiration. The man who had built walls to protect himself from emotional vulnerability now lived fully in his heart, unafraid to show affection, express fears, or admit when he needed help. One evening in June, as they sat on a terrace watching the sunset over the ocean, the twins sleeping peacefully in their bassinets beside them, Elliot reached for Clara's hand. "I've been thinking about our future," he began. Clara smiled. "Our hands are pretty full with the present, don't you think?" "True, but there's something important missing." Elliot reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. "We did things in an unconventional order, but some traditions are worth honoring." Clara's breath caught as he opened the box to reveal a stunning emerald ring surrounded by diamonds. "Green, like your eyes," Elliot explained. "The first thing I truly noticed about you." He slid from his chair to one knee, still holding her hand. "Clara Morgan, you've taught me how to love, how to trust, how to be human again. Would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Tears filled Clara's eyes. Despite their profound connection and shared children, this moment felt significant, a conscious choice to formalize their commitment. "Yes," she whispered. "With all my heart, yes." The ring slipped onto her finger, catching the last golden rays of sunset. As Elliot leaned forward to seal their engagement with a kiss, James chose that moment to wake with a lusty cry, followed immediately by his sister. They broke apart laughing. "Perfect timing," Clara observed, reaching for Elizabeth while Elliot lifted James. "Our most important witnesses approve," Elliot replied, settling his son against his shoulder. They married in September in a private ceremony on the beach below the estate. Only their closest friends attended, Clara's hospital colleagues, Elliot's most trusted business partners, and Reynolds, who would become like family. Clara's mother, enjoying a rare day of lucidity, beamed with pride as she held Elizabeth during the ceremony, while Dr. Maxwell, serving as Elliot's best man, cradled James. Clara wore a simple ivory gown that flowed in the ocean breeze, her hair adorned with wildflowers rather than diamonds. Elliot, eschewing his usual formal attire, matched her simplicity in light linen. Their vows, written personally, spoke of unexpected love, second chances, and the miracle of family created from what began as professional duty. There wasn't a dry eye on the beach as they promised to honor each other and their children through all of life's challenges. "You may kiss your bride," the officiant announced. As their lips met, sealing their commitment, the gathered friends erupted in applause while the twins, now 9 months old and developing distinct personalities, added their own babbling commentary from their grandstand seats. That evening, after the small reception ended and the twins were settled for the night, Elliot led Clara to his study. A legal document waited on his desk. "What's this?" she asked. The final paper is establishing the Clara Kane Foundation, he explained. Fully funded and ready to launch. Clara scanned the document, eyes widening at the mission statement, providing specialized medical care and support to single parents and their children, ensuring no parent faces health challenges alone. Elliot, she whispered, deeply moved. This is incredible. You inspired it, he replied. Your dedication to your mother, your patients, our children. It showed me how many struggle without the resources we're fortunate to have. This foundation will change lives, just as you changed mine. As their first year as parents drew to a close, Clara often reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this point. One night in December, as they decorated their first family Christmas tree, with the twins helping from their playmat nearby, she shared these thoughts with Elliot. If Dr. Maxwell hadn't insisted on monitoring your heart, if I hadn't been available that night, if the storm hadn't happened, so many coincidences led us here. Elliot considered this as he hung a handmade ornament featuring the twins' tiny handprints. I've spent my life believing in data, probability, and planned outcomes, he said thoughtfully. But us? We defy all statistical likelihood. Clara smiled, watching James determinedly reaching for a low-hanging ornament, while Elizabeth studied the twinkling lights with intense concentration, each already showing distinct personality traits. What do you think the moral of our story is? She asked, half teasing. Elliot gathered her into his arms, his expression serious despite her light tone. That love finds us in unexpected moments. That vulnerability isn't weakness but courage. That family isn't just about blood but about choice. He glanced at their children, his expression softening further. And perhaps most importantly, that it's never too late to begin again, to open your heart and find a life you never knew you needed. Clara rested her head against his chest, feeling the steady beating of the heart she had once monitored professionally and now cherished personally. From a medical perspective, I'd say your heart has made a complete recovery. Elliot laughed, the sound warm and free. More than recovered. It's completely transformed. Outside, snow began to fall softly, creating a perfect winter wonderland around the estate. Inside, the Kane family, once a lonely billionaire and a dedicated nurse, now parents, partners, and each other's greatest blessing, continued decorating their tree, creating traditions their children would carry forward. The virgin billionaire who had remained single for 35 years had found his purpose not in technological innovation or financial success, but in the experienced nurse who had taught him to love and the twins who had made them a family. Some might call it coincidence. Others might name it fate. But Elliot and Clara simply called it their miracle, a love story that had healed them both and created new life in more ways than one. My beautiful family, as we conclude Elliot and Clara's journey, I hope their story has touched something deep within your own heart. Perhaps it's reminded you that connections formed in our most vulnerable moments often become our greatest blessings. Or maybe it's shown you that it's never too late to open yourself to love's transformative power. What moment in their story resonated most deeply with you? Was it Clara's courage in following her heart despite the differences in their worlds? Elliot's willingness to dismantle the walls he'd built over 35 years? Or perhaps the beautiful family they created from that single night of unexpected connection? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one and find such joy in your reflections. Your stories and insights create a beautiful tapestry of shared experience that makes our Love and Twilights community so special. If this journey touched your heart, please subscribe and join our family of storytellers and dreamers. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our next emotional tale. And if you know someone who needs to be reminded that unexpected blessings await, even in life's most surprising moments, share this story with them. Until our next journey together, keep your hearts open to life's beautiful possibilities.